Would you like to live your best life possible, regardless of your imperfections? Discover cutting-edge tools and inspiration to let go of your limitations and expand your life beyond what you've ever imagined. On Imperfect Brilliance, we help you tap into your unique gifts and talents, uncovering and letting your brilliance shine. Join certified facilitator and coach Betsy McLaughlin as she delves into different areas of your life to get unstuck and create the life that is truly possible for you. Betsy has changed her life by utilizing the tools and techniques she is sharing with you. What if your willingness to acknowledge your brilliance is the catalyst to creating a new reality? When you stop judging you, what else can you create in your life and in the world? Join Betsy live every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern to create magical and joyous possibilities for an hour of laughs, questions, tips, and more. We are excited to contribute and play with you.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Imperfect Brilliance. I am your host, Betsy for this hour of imperfectly brilliant conversation. And today's guest is somebody I get to play with on a regular basis, Miss Sarah Watt. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I love the introduction to your show. I was just smiling and like, oh my God, it's like everything that should be available in the world. It's amazing.
Oh, thank you. Yes. I mean, that's the thing. It's so true. Like what is possible and to be available for all of us. And I love having these conversations. I'd love to also just tell everybody a little bit about you before we dive into our conversation today. So as I mentioned, I get to play with Sarah on a regular basis. She is an Access Consciousness Certified Facilitator. She's also a Joy of Business Facilitator. She's a Bars Facilitator. She works full-time with and for Access Consciousness, also with Simone, Milasas, and Brendon Watt. Yes, she's a very busy lady. She travels the world. She organizes a lot of different aspects of people's businesses as well as Access, and works with the translators and just like so many. She's got her fingers in a lot of different pots, if you will. And I know that you have used what we will talk about today, these tools, these questions that you learned in Access to change your life completely. And so today's topic is unhiding your brilliance in business. Yay!
Yay!
So Sarah loves asking this question, and so do I. And I thank you for the reminder of it. Every day she asks this question: what can I add to my life today to create the future I desire to live and to see in the world?
Yes.
Yummy, yummy, yummy. So Sarah, when she's not traveling the world, she lives in Australia, beautiful Australia. So I guess, is it really, I think it might be early in the morning for you. So thank you for joining us from home.
My pleasure. And it's actually not too bad. I mean, my meetings did start at 5:30 this morning, but it's a very tame 9 a.m. at the moment. So I've had a cup of coffee. I've kind of even got out of the house for 5 minutes. So this is a very good time,
awesome.
actually.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about, your journey and how you learned to unhide the brilliance of you in your life and in business.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, even when you invited me on this show, like I do what I always do when creating my life. It's pretty much always a yes. Like if someone asks me to come on something like this or do something like this, I get straight away a sense that it's going to contribute to what I desire to create in the world. So I was like, yes. And then, it got closer and closer. And then you asked me for some more information, like what are we going to call the show, and give us a little bit of a description. And so I kind of just ran with what's up in my world at the moment. And I really love how much this is so congruent with your show and like how, you know, it's very much a match with the introduction and how you do things here. So like, as far as unhiding your brilliance in business, what if it also changed a lot as well? And it was never this place of like, oh, okay, well, once I discover that I'm brilliant at something, you know, then cool, I'm brilliant at that. Like, what if it was this continual undiscovering and unhiding more and more and different things? And maybe if you're brilliant and you really enjoy one thing today, doesn't necessarily mean that's what you have to choose and create again tomorrow. And what if also, when you were talking just before about how busy I am, that was always a place for me where that was part of what I hid, I guess. There was an energy around, and it's been up in my world a lot lately, so I thought I'll talk about it as well. And I know a lot of the people we work with, and probably a lot of people out there in the world as well, have those days, those weeks, those moments where it's a little bit overwhelming, where it's kind of like, how am I ever going to handle this? You know, what if part of your brilliance as well was having that vulnerability with yourself to be like, okay, look, I actually am busy. And what if we were also willing to claim, own, and acknowledge? Because, you know, usually when people say to me, oh, Sarah, I didn't want to disturb you, this energy would come up and I would get defensive of that. Like, but now I'm like, actually, yeah, that's actually correct. And it's not to say that people shouldn't disturb me, because obviously if you need something from me, please do disturb me. But it was more like when we talk about this stuff and when we talk about unhiding your brilliance in business, what if we were willing to delve into and look at really the energetic underlying what comes up energetically in a way, and rather than it being this linear thing of like, my brilliance is I'm excellent at graphics, or my brilliance is I'm excellent at this. Like, what if it was really like every 10 seconds choosing to look at what you're brilliant at and also have a vulnerability with yourself about absolutely everything in business and the people you're working with as well. Like, what if there was nowhere where we needed to prove anything to each other? So, yeah, sorry, I totally did not answer your question there that you asked me, but I just wanted to address that was up in my world. Yeah,
Thank you.
And then as far as my journey, well, look, I loved what you said about, you know, all of the places that I contribute to Access and to Brendon and Simone's business, and I'm a certified facilitator and Joy of Business Facilitator as well. And it's been like probably a 5-year thing where I used to, you know, work in quote unquote the real world in a way. Like, I had a job where I managed businesses for people and I did all of this stuff. I've always been really quite good at business, I guess. It's always been something that I have enjoyed. But really what Access has changed is, I mean, God, in 5 years, I took on an internship with two local facilitators here in Australia, Lauren Marie and Rebecca Holes, and learned a bunch from them, and then got offered an internship with Simone and the Joy of Business specialty of Access. So I took on that and learned a bunch there. And then really the cool thing about Access is I just, exactly what you said, woke up every day and kept asking for more. And, you know, fast forward 5 years, you know, in 5 years, I'm now amongst many other things, one of the worldwide coordinators for languages for live translation with Access. So, and, you know, whatever, a title is just a title. It doesn't really mean a lot, but just to kind of highlight, really the only reason I bring that up is to highlight in 5 years, if you're willing to keep choosing, and for me to keep using the tools of Access, like I've accomplished in 5 years what I never dreamt of accomplishing in, you know, 20 years of my life or something like that. So,
right. Yeah. And, you know, 5 years ago, would you have thought that you would be traveling as much as you are, which is quite a bit?
Oh, God, no. And it's so funny because growing up, I knew I wanted to see a lot of the world, and people projected at me a lot that when I left high school, I would, you know, do the thing where you go backpacking, where in Australia especially, we do this thing called the gap year, where after you finish high school, before you go to university, I mean, they probably have it around the world as well, you know, you pack up for a year and hit the road and experience the world. And there was just always something for me where I was like, oh, backpacking and, you know, having no money and staying in hostels, which I'm sure would be super fun and a great experience. It just never was super light for me, but I always knew I wanted to travel the world. So I somehow as well kept choosing and leading myself down that avenue or in that direction in my life. And now it's like, well, hey, we're 2 or 3 weeks into February, and I think I've visited 6 countries this year already. So, yeah, like to say that's beyond my wildest dreams would be a total understatement as well. So, yeah. And, you know, like I talk to Simone Milasas quite often, and we laugh because, like, we're like, what if this is just the very beginning as well? Like, what if, you know, the image of the glacier or the big iceberg under the water, and you see the tiny bit poking out the top, but when you take the cutaway and look at the whole thing, you know, 95% of it is still sitting under the ocean. Like, what if really everything you've chosen and achieved in your life so far was just that tip that was sticking out of the water, and there was still 95% of what's available in this world still to come and still there and available for you to choose? So, yeah, I'm definitely going for that. And I don't know how that will turn out or what it will look like, but I'm also willing to take the deep dive and see and go for it and keep choosing. So,
you know, that is an amazing question. And what I love to do is tap into the listeners either now as well as in the future, and wondering, you know, like what did you do, like, when you had a time where you thought this was all somebody else's world and it was not achievable for you? What questions did you ask, and what did you do to change that for yourself?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing, and still every day, like I had these moments this morning even where I was like, and, you know, there's a lot going on. We just had the biggest class ever so far in Access that I was very involved in, and, you know, things are moving very much at warp speed. So even this morning I had this moment of like, oh my God, can I actually handle all of this? Like, is this what I really want my life to be like, this constantly? And that's where I start to look at, okay, if I was being me here, and that's, you know, there's some tools in Access that are available right from the get-go. And for me, those tools are the ones that are probably the ones I go to the most. And this being you thing, and, you know, that from that it kind of stems out to like, who does this belong to, an interesting point of view. But for me, I know myself, you know, and we're changing and continually evolving. And for me to say, I am Sarah Watt and this is me would be a lie, because I changed so much. And I also know there's an energetic match to who I am. Like, I know when I'm being me because there's an energy present there that very much is me. Like, it's not really describable in words. So when I reach those freak out moments, those overwhelmed moments, those upset moments, frustrated moments, I know that's not me. I know the energy is off. So then there's a bunch of different things you guys can be doing with this as well. Like, if something is funky in your world, look at what is available to change it. So if it's something that can be instantly changed, but also for me, I'm home in Australia at the moment for a week, and, you know, even just sitting at my office desk right now and looking out and hearing the birds, I'm not sure if you guys can hear them in the background, but the nature and the animals here are very alive. So for me to get outside and have some time to not be around all the noise is definitely something that contributes hugely to me. Also, when I have those moments, it's really time to go to question, guys, to look at like, okay, so if I was being me right now, you know, who would I be? How would I be? What would I be? Where would I be? When would I be? And it's not about having an answer or formulating things. It's really about tapping back into you as the energetic being that you are. So, yeah, and don't worry, like, it doesn't matter how much you think you've got your stuff handled or how much you think the person you work with has their stuff handled. Everyone has these moments, these days of whatever, of funk, of whatever's up in your world. So what if you could be kind to you as well and really ask some questions and look at what's required to change it, and be willing to like step away from your computer or your phone or your office. And even if it's just to walk outside and have 5 minutes in the fresh air or whatever's available to you, that you make that space available to you when it's required as well.
These are some great, great suggestions. Thank you so much. And I'm wondering the question you can ask for unhiding even more of your brilliance.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a bunch of stuff with that. I love to go to, and sometimes it's like, there's so many tools in Access, and there's so many things in the world, and there's so many. So even like write a couple of things down and use them. For me, one that I love to just ask, what next? Okay, so what next? What next? What next? What next? And I'll ask that of, even if I'm sending an email to someone and I'm paying them some commission on a class, or I'm sending them an email to cancel something, like if we had a language in creation and we cancel it, a lot of the time I'll close off an email with, hey, what next? Because it puts myself and that person into question and shows us that space that nothing's ever really final. Doesn't matter if it's a good thing or a bad thing, something beginning or something ending that you think is that way. It's like everything will continue. Energy never stops. It keeps going. So what if, like, every time you decide to look for more, you ask for more? Like, hey, what else is possible here? What next? And I think, like, keep it simple too. So, I mean, some people love to, have a lot more in-depthness with this sort of stuff, and that's great as well. For me, I would say the key is to keep it simple and just ask those basic questions for more to show up. And the minute as well you acknowledge your brilliance, you will find that more and more and more of it will show up. But if you're kind of like always focusing on the things that didn't go well, or the places that you fell short, or what you didn't get done, you'll always get more of that. Whereas if you can acknowledge every day, like, what if even you started every day, right? You wake up in bed and usually the first thing you start thinking about is, whatever, what someone else requires of you, what you didn't get done yesterday, what you need to get done today. Like, what if the first thing of the day, because none of us ever do that,
No, not at all.
And sometimes I have like a Post-it note, like, that I'll sticky on the end of my bed. Oh, we're at a break, right?
We are at our first break. Hold
Sorry,
that
everyone.
on the sticky note, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Thank you so much for listening to Imperfect Brilliance.
Free your mind with OMTimes Radio, IOM FM.
OMTimes magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organisation, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Connect at OMTimes.com. OMTimes, creating a more conscious lifestyle.
The student asks the teacher, "How do I experience transformation?" The teacher replies, "When the student is ready to receive deeper answers, the student then asks, 'How do I know what deeper questions to ask?' And the teacher replies, "When the student decides to commit to a practice inviting transformation, level 2 questions will be revealed." Hi, I'm Tomas Garza, and as a teacher and host, I'm inviting listeners to enroll in the Mastery of Transformation by joining me on Decide to Transform, your bridge to Level 2 Answers, Tuesdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Dad, this is fun. I didn't think I'd like kayaking.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it, but I think it's time to head back in.
Okay. Can we come back?
Sure. Hey, be careful getting out of the boat.
It's a kayak, Dad.
I'm going to return the kayak.
Can we walk home?
How about a taxi?
It's a short fare from your neighborhood to your naturehood. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a neighborhood park or green space near you. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the U.S. Forest Service.
Welcome back, everyone, to Imperfect Brilliance with a great conversation today already about unhiding your brilliance in business and I think probably also in your own life with my guest, Sarah Watt. So, Sarah, you were saying right before the break something about a sticky note.
Yes, I was. And just while we're on that as well, where you were saying this unhiding your brilliance in business and actually in your life, like how true that is as well. I love when, I work quite closely with Simone Milasas, and I have for a couple of years now. And one of the first things I ever heard her say was, what if your life is your business and your business is your life? Like for the first chunk of my life up until I met Access and started to really incorporate it into every part of my life, I very much had my business life and my life separate from each other. I'd clock off from work and I was never not present with it, but I always tried to not be. It was like, okay, it's after 5 o'clock, so this is me time, or it's the weekend, so this is me time. And it's very big in Australia to be that way as well. But what if everything actually was always connected and was always contributing to each other? And even if you do work a 9 to 5 job in an office, what if at all times your life was contributing to that and that was also contributing to your life? So I just wanted to mention that as well and play with that. But the sticky note thing, I actually, basically I can, accredit a lot of the big things in my life to Simone Milasas. She's been one of those people that has been like a huge inspiration in my life, watching how she creates things and listening to what she says and following through, maybe, on 1% of what I should follow through on, but still making, more change than I could have dreamed. And she said one day, like, what if you woke up every morning and the first thing that you did was acknowledged 10 things you were great at? And that could be anything. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be big stuff. It can be little stuff as well. Like anything, like I make a delicious cup of coffee, or, I'm great at smiling in public and noticing that it cheers other people up, stuff like that. So I wrote a Post-it note and stuck it on the end of my bed. And, rather than, as I was saying before the break, waking up every day and going to that place of like doing, what if it was this place if the first thing you could do is acknowledge your greatness every day as well? And what would that create to open the doorway for more of that to show up? And what if every day you were like, oh, only 10? I'm ready for 50 things that I'm great at today that I want to acknowledge about myself. So, yeah.
It just reminds me of it, because the tendency, certainly in my own world, is to go, like the things I haven't done, the things I've done wrong, the things I haven't accomplished yet, and so the reminder of all the things that you actually have accomplished, and that I don't, like how many people listening actually get through every single thing that they actually desire to do in a day.
Hey, if you're listening to this, my phone number, can you please call me and I will pay you all the money in the world to teach me how to do that.
Right?
Because it's like, my to-do list, I avoid writing to-do lists. I'll generally do more like a brain dump list where it's, I've read 10 emails and 10 Skype chats and I'm like, I really don't want to forget anything. So I have this note in my notes thing on my computer. It's basically my brain dump, and things go in there and then I can go back and just check off when they're done. But it only ever grows. I might take 5 things off in a day, but I'm going to add 15 things to it. So what if we were all willing to acknowledge that we're never going to be satisfied and we're never going to get everything done? And what if that was part of our brilliance? Like, what if part of our brilliance was, like I was talking about earlier with how busy we are, just acknowledging and there's that saying, if you want something done, give it to a busy person. And it's so true because we're so good at having 50 balls in the air at a time and knowing, when to catch that one and throw it back up and what's required over there. So, so if you guys are listening out there and you make yourself wrong, like what if you looked at that wrongness of like, I didn't get enough done today or whatever, and you looked at that as actually being a strongness, like something in you that was so resilient because you're not going to give up. You're going to keep going until you get it done. And all the while, while you're moving towards getting your shit done, basically, you're also going to add another 15 or 20 things to that pile, and you're going to get those done as well. So, yeah, acknowledging and unhiding your brilliance in business is really about stopping where you're making yourself wrong about absolutely anything as well. So, and that's, basically goes against everything we ever want to do or believe in, because our go-to, I mean, hello people, who doesn't love making themselves wrong? It's like basically what we do in this world. So what if we even started to play with changing that little thing as well? Yeah.
It's so true. And so so you talked a little bit about brain dump, which I also do, because I find that if I get it out of my brain, and then it quiets it down. Right. So you've got that trick. You can do your brain dump. And then what other tricks do you use when you've got 50 projects? How do you know what to do first?
Great question. That's an awesome question. And the thing I'll say is, what if you never let, however you're communicating with people? I mean, we work on Skype, WhatsApp, Slack. We've introduced Telegram, and we use WeChat, and we've got email. So basically my computer is just a way to get a hold of me in 17 different ways. So what if your choices were never based on your emails or your Skype chats? Like, sometimes I will go into my Skype and do a bit of a run through of like, okay, what do I need to look at? What do I need to deal with? But what if your day was never dictated by those things? And what if your day was always created from a question? So like a couple of things come up from that question that you just asked. Number one is, like, in the morning, another thing I like to start, and for me, starting the day like in a certain way kind of helps me throughout the rest of the day. Like, I find if I wake up and I have that panic feeling and then I buy into that and start creating my day from there, it's never fun, which means, it doesn't mean, I might still wake up tomorrow morning and have that panic feeling, but that's when I'm like, okay, whoa, let's just, take a step back here. What if I take the next 10 minutes, I start acknowledging the things that are brilliant about me? And then what I generally love to start my morning doing is a bit of an energy exercise where I basically picture just expanding my energy out, like my being, my energy, whatever that is for you guys, out and out and out. And now I can quite easily expand my energy around the whole world. It took me a little while. It's a muscle. If you're willing to just keep asking, it will happen. And what if you were already doing it and it was way easier than you ever could have imagined? And then while I'm that expanded, I start to ask some questions. So which of my businesses requires my attention today? What can I accomplish today? Where is my energy required today? And whilst my energy is that expanded, I'm not looking for like an answer or for something to come back to me. I basically just sit there with those questions and with that really big, expanded, energetic sort of presence. And then, I get up, start to go about my day. I might go and look at that brain dump list, and then it's basically almost like an energetic ping happens. And that might be something that comes into my awareness. It might be I open my emails and a particular email jumps out. It might be I look at that list and there's like things that, 3 or 4 things that I'm like, oh, actually, I've already done that. Tick, tick, tick. Okay, so what next? And, if you're willing to go from that space rather than the, oh, shit, I need to go to my to-do list and find out what I didn't do yesterday and start doing it. The other cool thing is stuff gets accomplished way quicker and with way more ease.
Well, and, what you described is certainly not A to Z, or 1, 2, 3, right? It's non-linear, and I too work that same way. You do find that you get pulled, and again, she talked about this energetically, right? You get pulled to what requires your attention. And and the more you acknowledge that you have that capacity, the easier it is, and the more you hear the creations that require you. And even if it's just for 2 minutes of your time, you'll know when to go there. I love being able to play in that and with those energies.
Yeah. And the more, exactly what you said, the more you're willing to do that big A word and acknowledge yourself for it again and have the ease with it all, the more it will just start showing up. The one thing I'll say is, like, the more aware you become as well, the more you will become aware of other people's universes too. So that pull thing, people will start to pull on you as well, and you'll notice, like, oh my God, you know, I'll wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and look at my phone and Simone sent me a message. I mean, some people have this capacity to just absolutely pull me in a way that, you know, and that's not making them wrong, not making me wrong, but this is like with everything where you go to question. So this is where you look at, okay, so am I required here right now? And really start to also look at, like, is it them pulling on you? And always go with what you're aware of, and yeah, play with it too. And you can't, this stuff's the other cool thing is you can't do it wrong. So what if you were willing to choose something, see how it turns out, and be like, what was I actually aware of? What did that choice create? What awareness did I get from this? And yeah, what next? And just keep choosing.
Well, that's a great this conversation. There are times when I go to do something and I just like it. It's almost like my hands are tied. I cannot do it, right? And then when you stay out of making yourself wrong and why can't I get this done, and you actually start asking questions, I'm telling you, 10 times out of 10 when that happens, like later on, you see there's some reason that, shows up for why you were not able to move on whatever it is that you thought you had to do. So
that's
what about for
very
you?
true.
Have the same thing? Yeah.
Definitely. Yep. And I was, and like it ties into everything we've talked about here. Like if you're willing to step out of that doing and getting things done and doing your to-do list and really willing to play with the energy. I mean, the universe doesn't adhere to time. Like time is a made up construct that we've come up with. And it's not to say that time is wrong or time is right. But if we start letting this thing that we actually created for whatever reason rule our day and make those choices for us, that's when that comes up, like where you literally feel like you're bashing your head against a brick wall because you're like, I need to get this done. And that takes you out of question of like, is now the time? And I would make myself so wrong. And then I was like, oh my God, I need to have this done already. And then, 24 hours later, it's like, boom, it was done with about 1/10 of the effort that it would have taken if I'd had dug my heels in and done it when I thought the timing was, the deadline's due, so I need to get it done now. So yeah, it's such a different world that we play in with business, with using this stuff. And if you're willing to go there and just start and see what shows up and then keep asking for more, really, guys, like I invite you to just come along and play and start playing with things and seeing what's truly available and possible in this world.
For that invitation.
Yeah.
Oops, sorry. Thank you for that invitation. You faded for a second, so I thought you had stopped talking. So with that, that invitation that you just gave everybody, it's definitely a more chaotic way of operating. So for people who are in more rigid, like let's say a corporate structure, how do they navigate around the structures of corporations?
That's a great question as well. And yeah, very awesome and very that's great. And I would say it's great. And I would say just start playing with it. Start looking at asking questions and moving yourself away from how you've done things and be willing to change things. And that doesn't mean, that saying throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Like there's probably a lot of things in your life and in your job that are working quite well. Like what we invite you to here is to add more to what you're already doing. So it's not this place of like, oh my God, now I've found this awesome thing. I'm going to stop doing my life and I'm going to start doing this other thing. Like what if every day you just looked at where you could add something here that would create more ease, and also that then you'll find that the things that aren't working will become a lot more obvious and a lot more easy to either drop, find someone else to do it. It will change by itself, or it will just start becoming more ease and more fun for you. So, I mean, I was working in my job when I took on some internships and started working with Access. So I was actually working a full-time job as well as an internship and doing a couple of other things for Access. So I just really started looking every day at what I could add to my life, like what we said right at the beginning, that would create more ease here, and see what shows up. And also, like, write some tools down and just start playing with them. Start incorporating them into your day. And even if it's one tool, one question today that you can use 5 times, and just start seeing what shows up. And what's the worst that can happen?
Yes, great question. What is the worst that can happen? And, you know, can you keep moving forward no matter what? And for me, I used to be in the corporate world, you know, like the big corporations. I've had my own, several of my own businesses as well. So I've done everything from small business to very large, huge corporations. So and now having these tools and these questions, like it definitely, I could look at where, if I had some of these, how it would have made my life easier being in that environment. And it doesn't mean that I would have gone in and changed everyone, you know, tried to change everyone else, but it would have been way more ease for me in certain situations if I had these questions and these tools to play with. So as Sarah mentioned, you know, like if you're willing to just start playing with it with really no point of view or expectation about how things are going to show up, and, you know, and be willing to just keep going, keep asking for more joy and more ease with everything that you create, and then how that just ripples out to every single part of your life is beyond what you can even imagine. Oh, yep. Great timing for our
perfect
second
timing
break.
Right?
Hang on, guys. We'll be back pretty soon to have more of this amazing conversation today. Thanks for listening.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Hello, I'm Lisa Berry. Join me every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for Light on Living, a chance to see new, hear different, and feel more as I shine the spotlight on all the ways to lighten the load of life's challenges. Light on Living is your link to that new way you're looking for, that new understanding that will enhance your life, and that positive connection that will support your growth. So join me and you'll gain insight and start to see things in a new way that motivates you.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Hello, it's Betsy McLaughlin here today with Sarah Watt, who is home in Australia while she's talking to us today, and she does travel the world working for Access Consciousness and facilitating classes, and we're having a wonderful conversation today about unhiding your brilliance and your brilliance in business. And Sarah, I would love for you to take a moment to invite people who might like to find out more about you, how they could after the show.
Oh, thank you. That's wonderful. So probably the easiest way would be my website. My website, which is www.sarahwatt.com.au, because I'm Australian. And then also I have a business Facebook page as well. So that's facebook.com/ I think it's Sarah Ann Watt. I'm just double checking. Yes. So my middle name is Ann. So my business Facebook page is facebook.com/ Sarah Ann, ANN Watt. I've got a free Zoom coming up next Monday, actually, Monday morning Australia time. So it'll be sort of Sunday afternoon in the Americas and Sunday evening in Europe. And you can find that on my website, or the short link is sarahwatt.com.au/free Zoom. So that I've called it, what does my business require of me today? And, you know, it'll be a 30-minute or 1 hour Zoom. You can come on and ask me questions about anything as well. So I'm working the muscle for myself of facilitating more. So I'm grateful for this opportunity, Betsy. And also I work a lot in other people's businesses, and I also get that there's a message and some stuff that I would love to have out in the world too. So I definitely am looking to, work that muscle of both having my contributions to the various businesses I work on, and then also my facilitation business. So I'm very excited about that as well.
Me too. So how do you juggle all of that for people listening who might have very similar things where they're doing several different businesses? How do you juggle it all?
Well, recently I realized I needed some help. So what if also, put your hand up out there, everyone listening now or in the future, if you're a control freak of magnitude. Simone asked the room this at the Business Done Different she did recently in Melbourne, and she's like, okay, so hands up in the room, who's a control freak? And my hand shot up and my arm was like high up in the air, like to acknowledge as well that I do love to control everything basically, and also that doesn't necessarily create a lot. So I don't know, a couple of months ago at the end of last year, I really chose that, in 2020, it was one of those, end of year epiphany moments where I'm like, I'm going to start creating something different. And I just did a Facebook Live and sort of said to people, hey, I'm asking for help and for people who would like to contribute to me and what I'm doing in my business. And actually now I have an amazing person that works on my website. I'm sort of training up another girl, and I'm still looking. And it's not like, the people that came forward that everything turns out exactly how you expect it to or how you want it to. But I think even just the willingness to ask for help changed a lot in my business. And it felt like that created it getting bigger. So I would say, if you're a control freak, what if you asked for people that are better than you to show up? People that are better than me at organizing things, people that are better than me at creating graphics. And what if you were willing to have people that totally out-created you show up and contribute to your business?
That I love those questions, and it's like, say what, right?
I know, right? And it's like not anything we're taught to do. It's like, no, you must control it and do it all yourself. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and as you just said, it does have this more of a limitation energy to it, when you are trying, when you're trying to control every single thing. And I can think of even in a kitchen scenario, right, where, one person is like, well, I'm going to do it all, and then everybody's sitting and waiting for the meal to be done because they wouldn't let anybody else pitch in and help. And, it's 2 hours later and people are starving. But if everybody had been allowed to pitch in and create the meal, it would have, been a lot quicker and smoother. And so I certainly have that as well. And I'm still learning and stumbling and along my journey for being able to, ask for help and even know how to do it all and what that is, what that looks like, and just get out of my own way of it and say, I actually do require help. So thank you so much for bringing that that piece into this conversation today. And
my pleasure.
So you said, okay, cool, I need some help. And then did you have any expectation of the people that showed up?
In a way, yes. And like everything we've said here, like what if also it was a continual, like, a continual creation and a continual place to look at, oh shit, I just had an expectation that person was going to do what they told me they were going to do. Or I had an expectation that because they told me they were good at this, that they were actually good at it. So what if that was part of it as well? And really getting to learn to use even more of the tools and more of your awareness around listening to what people say, but also really listening to what is going on in their heads rather than just the words that are coming out of their mouths. And, you know, it's all this huge playground of it really just being the possibilities for more and greater to show up. So, yeah, I've definitely had expectations and then been like, oh, why am I disappointed right now? Because, hey, you know, newsflash, if you'd never had an expectation, you could never be disappointed. The only reason you're disappointed is because you had the expectation in the first place. I mean, you know, it's that crazy scenario where we think expecting something of someone is going to actually make them do it, or, you know, getting a little bit cranky at them is going to make them do it. Ha, newsflash, guys. Unfortunately, life just does not work that way. So, and I guess the other thing with me, I know, right? The other thing I've realized as well is I am willing to jump in and grab things when they are looking like they need to be grabbed, but also sometimes you need to let people fail, because sometimes the way people come to the biggest awareness is when they totally fuck something up. And sorry if I'm not allowed to swear on here. I've tried to not swear until now. So if that's bad, I apologize. But to see someone just totally screw it up is sometimes the best awareness they can get. Whereas where are you guys not willing to let people fail?
Yeah.
And if you were willing to let them fail, how much more would it create? Yeah.
Yeah. So if you do allow somebody to fail, and let's say, you know, they absolutely fall on their face and fail, like what you would consider fail miserably, then what?
Well, then you need to let them come to you and ask questions, or you can ask them questions as well. Like, hey, what happened there? Or looking at this, what do you get? What do you get was created? But you cannot give someone an awareness. And the cool thing about if someone does do that proper fail, epic fail as I call it, they're probably going to get a lot of awareness out of it themselves. And they're going to choose to either create something different or they're going to choose to do it again. I mean, most people won't choose the same thing, but there's still a lot of people that will. So what if what you got out of it was more awareness of what that person is choosing and where they are functioning from? So next time you have them on a project or you're asking them to do something, it's not like keeping a scorecard. It's just being aware that, hey, this person can choose some crazy shit sometimes. And that doesn't mean, I work with people that are brilliant in some areas and not so brilliant in other areas. And I know for myself I am as well. So what if it was also just information and awareness for you for the future? And it doesn't necessarily mean because they've stuffed up something once that you need to yell at them or fire them. What if it was just a place of acknowledgement and awareness of that?
Right, for sure. And, you know, for me, certainly, there's always great lessons learned, and and I'm always asking, like, what could I create greater, and how could this be easier? And, you know, what was I, even the question, what was I unwilling to be aware of here? You know, I was like, oh, right, I didn't want to see that or whatever. And so when you start shutting down that awareness, that's usually when I find I get myself kicked in the butt, right?
Yeah. And how often do we work with people that we like, that are our friends, and that cuts off part of our awareness as well? Like, what if in business we really didn't have friends, like that everyone was just, you know, and it's nice to work with people that you get along with and that you enjoy. And I'm not saying this from anywhere except total personal experience. For myself, the moment I go to that place of I like this person, or this is a good person, or this is my friend, I have right there chopped off a whole bunch of awareness about that person that I will never have when I have them in that box of this is my friend, I like them type scenario. And it's bitten me on the bum a lot of times. And I still get along with everyone I work with. And when it comes to business, what if your awareness was way more important than your friendship with people?
Great question. Great question. Wow. So where else would you like to unhide your brilliance, Sarah?
Oh, good question. Thank you. Wow. I've actually been looking, it's almost like you're nailing me on everything that's up in my world. Don't you love consciousness and how psychic we all are? It's like, it's like everything that's up in my world right now is like totally like bam, bam, bam. And it's really, where else would I like to unhide my brilliance? Wow. I think I would like to just sit with that question for a little while too. And also, like, what if it was that place where if something comes up in your world that you could ask yourself a question like that and then just sit with it for a day or 5 minutes or 10 minutes? I know there's an energy there, Betsy, when you ask me that, and putting it into words might not be probably the most coherent thing right now. But there's certainly a space in my world of unraveling at the moment. And I usually know when, when it almost is like you're standing on a surface that's moving, like this, like there's no solidarity in my world right now, that it's the precipice to a big change that's about to happen. So, I mean, what I would always do is ask for more. But I get there's something else there as well that's becoming available to me personally and to everyone in the world, because that's the other cool thing, guys. If it's available to me, it's available to all of you. If you can see something in someone else, like you look at Betsy and you notice how brilliant she is with organizing things and herding the kittens, as we call it in Access. If I can recognize that in someone else, it is available for me. It is available and accessible for me to choose it as well. If you notice the kindness in someone, that kindness is available to you. If you notice how much someone can be a total bitch or asshole, that's available to you. And it doesn't mean you have to choose it, but how often are we like, oh my God, that person is so good at that? Hey, if you can recognize it in them, what if you started asking to outcreate them in that? Oh my God, Betsy is so amazing at herding kittens and organizing people. Then question, what would it take for me to be better at it? Or what would it take for me to outcreate her in that area? And what if unhiding our brilliance was at every opportunity looking for places to ask for more to show up and never letting anything stop us again, really? Yeah.
I love those questions. Thank you so much, Sarah. And yes, and like never letting anything stop us again. And you brought up an interesting energy that it definitely shows up in my world sometimes, where when I see somebody's brilliance in whatever, and I go, oh my God, I couldn't. And then the next thing that comes in, a lot of times, not as much, but it still does show up, is I could never be as good as them. So then I stop myself, right?
Good.
And so then this question that you just shared with us of, hey, what would it take to outcreate that person? It doesn't in any way negate them. It's just that it's like, okay, what could I do to create that or be that? And even if you did the exact same thing, you're not the same person, right? So it's just not going to be the same.
Yeah, and what if every time you took that place of like, we call it like there's a game called Leapfrog, and I don't know, like it's a kid's game where you basically crouch down and someone jumps over the top of the other, then they crouch down and the person jumps over the top of them, like a frog would over the top of another frog. Like what if every step of the way we did that, and it was like, oh, I'm going to jump and outcreate you now, and then the next person was like, oh, now I want to step up and outcreate you on that. And it was never this place of like, oh, I just jumped ahead of you, so now I'm the best or the leader. It was always this place of but it's this place of lightness and play with it. Like, hey, what would it take? because the thing you were saying as well with where you go, oh, they're so brilliant at that, I could never be that good. That's the moment where you totally destroy yourself from ever.
Yes.
Well, you know, not from ever, but until you're willing to change that point of view about, oh, I could never do that, or I could never be that good. You never will be. I mean, in the end, it's so true that your point of view is actually what creates your reality. So if your point of view is, I could never be that good, I'm sorry, you never will be. And if your point of view is, what would it take for me to outcreate that? What could I invite into my world to create something greater than that? Like, that's when the universe gets to start to play with you, and when the energies and things start to open up and present a whole different, you know, plethora of possibilities. So,
well, and it's so true,
exciting.
and it can be that easy of, as soon as if you ever, you know, hear yourself or hear the words, or you think those words, you can instantly be like, oh, wait a minute, change it to those questions. And you saw, I mean, just energetically, the difference when, you know, with the questions versus the assumptions and, you know, the projections. And, like, it really can be that simple, guys. Oh my gosh, we're at the end. How did that happen?
We've gone too fast. It was too exciting. Thank you, Betsy.
Sarah, thank you so much for coming on. I hope you'll come play with us again. This was awesome. So grateful.
Anytime, my friend. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening, everyone. Have fun.
Uncover your brilliance.